Okay. Review. We went to see.
You haven't introed the video.
Oh yeah, Katie, Shaun, Katie. Anyway, we went to see No Time to Die yesterday.
Yeah.
And I gave it a day so we could, digest and we're just going to talk about it a little bit. First 10 minutes, spoiler free. Second 10 minutes, spoiler full. But you will get a spoiler alert when that happens.
Okay.
Yeah, what did you think?
I thought it was good. I was a little confused over how I felt about it at first. I think we both were, weren't we? We didn't really know what
I still am.
to think.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the worst movie I've ever seen.
No.
I understood it.
Yep.
But
I've got headphones on.
It wasn't like
ridiculously convoluted.
Yeah, like I mean Skyfall. I knew as soon as I watched that, like that was one of the best James Bond movies I'd seen.
That was just a dead basic plot, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Bad guy wants revenge. Good guy tries to stop him.
But with this one, I was a little like.
Remember, no spoilers.
Yeah, I was a little confused. I mean, I'm trying to not put spoilers. Yeah. I can say about like Rami Malek not having a big part in it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he didn't really. I was kind of going into it expecting him to have like
a lot to do.
Yeah, but he was kind of. I know they were probably going for that like mysterious.
Yeah.
Kind of backseat villain, but he just, for me, like I couldn't get invested like in him as a villain because he didn't like see much of him.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to feel about him.
I mean, you can probably count on one hand how many scenes he's in because he's not in it very much. And that doesn't count as a spoiler. Before you start telling me that that's a spoiler, it doesn't count as a spoiler. The entire thing, I don't think there's any scenes that doesn't have Daniel Craig in it. I'm pretty sure he's in.
Maybe like one or two. Again, you can count the scenes that he's not in with one hand.
Yeah.
Because there's one or two scenes.
Yeah, pretty much the entire thing follows him.
Yeah.
But as for all the other, obviously Daniel Craig is a great James Bond. Probably the best, in my opinion. He's the best James Bond. But the entire cast, I mean, what little Rami Malek is in it, he's okay, I guess. He's not like, he wasn't like Javier Bardem. Javier Bardem like commanded every single scene that he was in.
Yeah. I think he served his purpose. He was kind of that, I guess, the one for that creepy kind of like vibe, but again, no, like for me, like in order to get invested in just any character at all, you need to see them quite a bit. You need to at least know a lot about him. Have
a bit of build up before you meet him as well, because most of Skyfall is like building up to meeting Silver, and then you meet him, and it's a perfect opening scene for Silver as well when he comes down the elevator and he walks slowly to him, giving him the little speech. It's like there wasn't really anything like that for Rami Malek. And I'm not saying that they should be mirror copying Skyfall, but
but you still need something to kind of establish them, and you just didn't have a scene like that.
Yeah.
I didn't think where you went, oh my god, like he's like a big deal, or he's like a big threat, or like I really not like him, like, because I don't think you can really say that you like him, but you like the acting that he's doing for that.
Yeah.
He was kind of just like, I was kind of like, yeah, he's okay. He wasn't terrible, but I just didn't really understand like.
So Lea Seydoux, really good.
Yeah.
She was really good.
Really, really good.
She's a really, really good actor.
You can't really talk about her much though without giving spoilers.
I know,
that's
why I'm just glossing over all the other actors. Ana de Armas, for the tiny amount that she's in it, was really good. And I think I actually fell in love with Ana de Armas.
You really did. You left and the first thing you said was how she was like gorgeous.
No, what I said, gonna quote me correctly.
Sorry.
Objectively, she is the most beautiful woman on this planet. Like, I have people who I like more because of other things besides her attractiveness, but based purely on attractiveness, I think she might be the most beautiful woman on the planet. More than Gal Gadot, Scarlett Johansson, and all those. I think she is.
Yeah, she wasn't in it much. She was in maybe like what?
Maybe 2 or 3 scenes.
Yeah, she was really good though.
Yeah, yeah. She's really funny.
Yeah.
What's it called? Ralph Fiennes was good as M.
But when is he ever not good? Just like in general.
That's right. Ralph Fiennes is awesome. Rory Kinnear, another returning character, was good as Tanner. Miss Moneypenny was good.
You don't know her name, do you?
Naomi Harris.
Oh.
I don't know her name. Do you know who I am?
You just didn't say her name, so I was like, do you not know her name?
Ben Whishaw as Q. He's really good.
Yeah, he's just
really cute.
Yeah.
He's a cute little sort of. He's like almost like a nephew a little bit. Like the way James is with Q is how I imagine me and Harry being in like 20 years' time. So like I just go, there's this bit of technology I don't understand, fix it, and Harry will go, fixed, and I'll be like, yeah. I'll be running around going like, yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Q is just like sweet though, with his cardigans and he's just
his cats.
Yeah.
Who else was there? Who else have I missed? I've missed someone. Jeffrey Wright. I think that's his name. Jeffrey Wright. Now that one I don't know his name. I'm not entirely sure about his name.
Jeffrey Wright.
I
don't know many actors' names, so I'm no help in this instance.
Jeffrey Wright. I'm sure that was his name. Jeffrey Wright. Yes. As Felix.
Oh, yeah.
He was good. For the little that he was in it, not in it very much.
Again, he was only like 2 or 3 scenes.
There was only one thing that I didn't like the character, the Doctor.
The Doctor. Oh, the
creator.
Right.
I'm desperately trying not to give anything away because we're going to talk about the main plot in about 3 minutes. But if you want to skip to our opinions when we're not spoiling it, 3 minutes ahead, it's about 10 minutes in. Yeah, I just didn't like the Doctor. I liked how Hugh is it Hugh Dennis? There's a comedian, he's a famous English comedian that was in it. He played one of the doctors that got killed. And it was quite funny. I'm glad to see him in it. But just in general, I'm glad to see English comedians in more stuff because Ramesh Ranganathan and James Acaster are both in the new Cinderella film, and them two deserve it because they're really, really funny people. Because as we all know, British comedians are the best.
There you go. You had to do it, didn't you?
Sorry, I've got to offend someone. I was always joking, by the way. That I'm indifferent to comedians. I like whoever. But yeah.
Yeah,
Back to No Time to Die.
He didn't really have much, did he? I was a bit confused when it came to him. They could have not had him, and I wouldn't have affected the movie. I don't think.
Yeah.
Like they could have had him in the beginning, but I'm trying not to spoil it.
Yeah, beyond that point.
But beyond a certain point, he didn't really do anything.
I honestly thought he was going to die. Like I thought it was going to be one of them things where he helps them, then gets killed
immediately. Yeah. But they could have done that, and I don't think it would have made a difference. Yeah. To be perfectly honest, when it came to the plot.
Who else was there? Was there any actors that I'm missing? Because that wasn't very many actors.
007, not James Bond.
Oh, yeah. Is it Lashana Lynch? I think she's called.
I don't know.
I'm sure that's her name. Something like that. Because I'm sure we have like I'm sure she's got a Shaun in her name, so I like that. Just for that reason. Yeah. No Time to Die. Cast. Lashana Lynch. Yep.
Yeah.
So.
I thought she was good.
Yeah.
I thought she was really good. She did all of her own stunts and everything.
So she should. James Bond film. Good for her.
She's good. You would though, wouldn't you? If you're in that instance, you would have to, just out of principle.
If you're going to wear the suits and run around with the gear, do the stunts.
But yeah, I was a little like. At first, I didn't really I was kind of just like It's not like I didn't like her. I was kind of just like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
I honestly thought she was going to be a bad guy. At some point, I thought she was going to be on his side.
I can see why you would think that. But then she had like, I think there was one scene. I was like, okay, I really like her.
Yeah.
I really, really like her.
One thing I will say. So before we went to see this film, obviously it's been put off for about 18 months.
Yeah.
I did not listen to the song like beforehand. I knew that Billie Eilish had sang the song, but I didn't listen to it because I don't like listening. I like listening to the song in the James Bond context. I don't like listening to it before. Of it. So I've never done it with Skyfall.
Not even with the trailer.
No. What
really?
Was it on the trailer?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, well, I wasn't paying that attention to the song. But when I listened to it, I'm sorry, Billie Eilish fans, it wasn't a James Bond song. It's not like a Shirley Bassey or Tina Turner. Do you know what I mean? It was just. I know you like all that sort of mumble, sort of music. You know what I mean? I don't know how to describe. What genre of music is it? It's just mumble. Is that
pop, isn't it? I guess you would say.
Mumble pop. Let's call it that. We've just named it that.
Pop, okay.
Mumble pop.
I mean, she doesn't mumble. You can
She absolutely does mumble. She absolutely does mumble. Like, I can imagine. You know how, like, when you see studios, you see, like, singers and that, they're standing like this to the mic and they're singing and they're giving it their everything. I can imagine her just being like this. Number one, right there. That's going straight to number one. Just that 10-second clip. Anyway, that's enough of me ranting about Billie Eilish. Spoiler alert. Right on Daniel Craig's face. So now we can start talking about. I suppose probably the big one that everyone wants us to talk about is the fact that James Bond dies at the end.
Yeah. Really should have got like Dad in on this.
Yeah. So when we came out of the cinema, we were sort of split. There was me, my mum, and Katie, and my dad. So my dad, who's grown up with James Bond, is entirely.
It's like his hero. He's watched all the James Bond movies.
Our mum's never particularly liked James Bond because he's a chauvinist, a womanizer. Not really a chauvinist, but he's a womanizer. Mm. And obviously there was us who sort of have grown up in the age of Daniel Craig, haven't we?
Yeah.
16 years he's been James Bond, you know.
Yeah.
I was 9 when he started.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I think it was the right way to end it.
Yeah, I agree. There was no other way they could have done it without having people complain.
Yeah. He would have constantly had that cloud over his head as well. Like, are you going to come back? Are you going to come back? And he would have had to constantly say no. I think this way you go, right, okay, so Daniel Craig can't come back as James Bond now.
Yeah, because he's dead.
But in one of the saddest scenes I've ever seen, like, it was really, really sad scene, wasn't it?
Me and Mum cried.
Yeah. I was close. I was teary. It was really
one
sad.
of those. I mean, I guess we're doing the spoilers so I can talk about it, but it was one of those things where, like, because he started talking about his daughter, how she was like the most beautiful thing he's ever seen, and I was like, my lip went. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just for context, there's this machine, and it.
Make sure you just go back through it. Just quickly go back through the movie.
All right. Okay. So, starts off with, like, James Bond and what was his girlfriend called? Madeline, driving through sort of Italy.
Yeah.
And they're all happy.
Present time, yeah.
Yeah, they're all happy, and it's all that,
Lovey-dovey.
Following on from Spectre. And James Bond, she says something about where we're going or whatever, and James Bond says we have all the time in the world, which is a callback to a James Bond film. Just in case you didn't know that is a callback to another James Bond film. And what happens is they're sort of questioning each other about where the future is, where the future's going. If they're really serious, then James has to know all these secrets about her. Mm-hmm. But she knows that he's still a bit iffy when it comes to Vesper, because Vesper was his first love. And then he goes to Vesper's grave. Grave blows up. Huge action sequence, and it's the one from the trailers where he goes up on the bike and he does the big stunt and he jumps off the bridge and all that stuff. That's in the first 2 minutes, which was all amazing. It was all really cool. And the bit with the DB5 as well. That's on there as well. I like that. Yeah,
it was interesting. It was like really intense. It went from like the movie started off, didn't it, with like a flashback to Madeline's childhood, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Completely forgot about that bit. Yeah.
Of like her like witnessing her mother dying, and she almost drowns under the ice. But I forgot his name. What's Rami Malek's character's called? He's got like a really.
Lufizia Safin.
Is that his actual name, or did you just make that up? So
no.
I just thought
it's the second time you've doubted me this video.
So yeah, he saves her, doesn't he? Like he
has the chance to kill her.
Yeah,
saves her.
She's like drowning under the ice, but he saves her, and then it flashes forward to present day.
The Italy thing that I was
So
saying.
it goes from like intense to like all lovely and like they're having like
straight back into intense.
To literally explosion, and it's just like he's driving through. It's chaos
and
everywhere.
It ends as they're sort of driving through Italy with all these cars chasing them, where he's essentially says, "How did Spectre know that he was there?"
Because he's doubting her, isn't he? Because one of the guys he's fighting told him that she's a daughter of Spectre.
Yeah. So he doubts her because who else could it be? It wasn't her, by the way. It wasn't actually her. And what he essentially does is he drops her off on a train and tells her that you'll never see me again.
Yeah, which was sad.
Which was very sad because she was running down the train trying to see him, and then he was gone.
Yeah.
But did you actually notice in that scene? I knew she was going to be pregnant, right? Because in that scene, she touches her stomach, and I was like, "Oh my god, she's going to have a child."
Because she said something, didn't she?
That's when I knew that
she said something to him, didn't she? Like, you don't. I can't remember exactly what she said. She said something, and I kind of thought.
Yeah.
Before she got on the train, she said something.
How do I find you or something?
Yeah. Or something about him not understanding and everything, or something like that.
Yeah.
And before she got on the train, then she touched her belly, and I was kind of like, oh, is she going to?
I know at that point that either she was going to die or he was going to die. Then it sort of goes to 5 years later when there's this machine that's been. Well, it's not really a machine, is it? It is a machine, but it isn't. It's like nanobots. And it's stolen by a Cyclops guy who's got a mechanical eye. Yeah. And they take the doctor who created it, and this is like that blood. It's like a disease where. It's like,
but they kind of called it a few things. It's like they called it a virus, and they called it a disease, and they called it like a poison.
Basically, what it does is it puts nanobots inside you, and then there's another thing that can activate those things inside of you, which ultimately kills you.
So it's like it's through DNA, isn't it? So it's like anyone can have the nanobots, but it's only
certain DNAs that can be
certain
activated.
targets that it'll go after. So like if you have it, it won't kill you if you're not the target.
But it will also kill relatives and stuff of you.
Well, that's later on they find out that they weaponized it differently so that it can kill relatives.
Yeah, so that was basically the stakes, was this machine.
The weapon,
and it turns out that Mallory made it, and it obviously wasn't intended to be a weapon of mass destruction. It was meant to be like
he was using
like an assassin thing, wasn't it? That's what he was.
Yeah, it was like a way to like reduce collateral damage, so you could just get the nanobots into your target and kill them without killing loads of people around them.
Yeah.
Which in itself is fair enough, but obviously it's a bit.
Yeah. So what ultimately happens is James Bond is recruited by Felix because they don't trust each other. The CIA and MI6 don't trust each other, so he wants James to go in because James is the only man that he can trust. And James at first says no until he finds out that it was the Heracles project, as it's called, and then he decides that he's in.
Yeah.
And what they want the actual.
Well, no, because he knows it's Spectre. That's the thing, isn't it? He knows it's Spectre that's involved.
Yeah, because the Doctor's was with Spectre, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's the main thing that motivates him. Obviously, he's after Spectre.
So he goes in. He's at this party. That's where he meets Anna de Armas. What was that character called? Nomi. Was it Nomi or something like that?
I can't remember. I mean, we watched it once.
She's not in it very much. And they're at the Spectre party, and then what's meant to happen is James gets infected with it.
Yeah, it's meant to kill him.
Because the Doctor sort of did a sneaky switcheroo, all the Spectre people died. Like, all of them. People who you did see in Spectre were there as well, and they all died. Yeah. All of them died.
Because it's like this weird. It is like a weird turn of events, isn't it? Because beforehand you see the Doctor give them
swap, like he swaps things.
No, but like he also you see him and he's using James' DNA, so you're like, oh, he's gonna try and kill James with it, but then you don't actually see him. It's
nobody swaps the DNAs over because Safin tells him to swap over, and then etc. Loads of fight scenes. They get the Doctor. He gets the Doctor.
Yeah.
He meets Felix, and it turns out Felix's partner is working with Safin.
Yeah, what was he? Logan Ash. He was called, wasn't he? Here.
And blows the ship up, also killing Felix. Felix dies, and it's actually very sad because James is trying to keep him above water, and
because he got shot first, and he's like bleeding out, and obviously he can't hold himself up in the water, so he's.
And then he just sort of says, "It's a good life" or something like that, didn't he? He said it was a good life, and he let him go. Literally like Titanic, just lets him go.
Yeah.
He takes a cigar with him though, doesn't he?
The cigar that he was supposed to give to him.
Yeah. So basically, we're not going to go through the entire film for you. You'll have to go and see it. But the movie ends when James and Safin come face to face.
Because Safin's kidnapped Madeline and his daughter.
Yeah. And they realise that they're not just targeting specific people; they're targeting everyone. There's a lot of like certain DNAs that they're targeting, which is when you get that bit in the trailer where Shaun Lynch says he'll kill millions because that's what he's after.
Because it's like it's not just because they changed the weapon, didn't they? Changed it so that it's not just one person. It's like we said, it's family, but it's also like people just with similar DNAs. It's like whole races of people could be wiped out and stuff. So it would end up being millions.
Yep. So they meet up. James basically says just bomb the whole place. The whole place needs to go.
Yeah.
And it's a very tense sort of, thing where M is kind of like, he doesn't think they can do it because the Japanese and the Russians are both trying to...
It's in neutral territory between the Japanese and the Russian, isn't it? It's like, and they don't understand why. Because obviously they don't know about Safin, or they don't know about anything that's going on. They're kind of confused as to why the British are trying to bomb an island that's in the middle of their territory.
And so James stays back. Madeline and Matilda, his daughter, they jet off to safety with Lashana Lynch's character, 007, I suppose we should probably call it.
Yeah, 007. Yeah.
And she goes and she gets them to safety. So he goes up, and there's a really, really brilliant scene where there's no camera cuts or anything, but it just follows James Bond up the stairs as he's killing all the guards. And it's really good because it must have been a really hard worked scene, and it ends with like a fight with the Cyclops guy. And it's really good. It was a really good scene. But ultimately what happens is when he's just about to escape, he gets shot at by Safin. Gets shot twice by Safin.
Well, he has to go back up, doesn't he? Because he opened... It's in like an old bunker, and he had to open like the missile doors so that they could bomb it. But obviously Safin shuts them, so he has to go back up to reopen them, and that's when he shoots him.
So yeah, Safin shoots him twice, sort of grounds him, and they get into a bit of a fight.
Scuffle.
Where Safin smashes a vial of what's her name? Madeline's blood. No, the killer blood. The killer stuff. The stuff that kills you. The stuff that kills you if you've got the thing inside you. He puts that on her and basically says, we die for the ones we love or something. You can't touch or interact with your wife or your daughter.
So he went to go see Madeline before. Because after the 5 years she was like a psychiatrist, wasn't she? So he went to see her, and you could see him, he got a strand of her hair and he kind of tucked it away. And he took that and he used it as to get a DNA, but also as her daughter's DNA because of the new way that he...
So basically what that meant was James couldn't interact at all with Madeline or his daughter. Plus he's at that point he's quite badly injured. Yeah.
Not even just that though, but it's the way it works, it is like a virus, so that he could just avoid them, but eventually what would happen is through human interaction it would spread and spread and spread until it eventually got to them. So even then it was like he couldn't live
anywhere near them
without it getting to them
and
eventually.
Even then they wouldn't necessarily be safe. So he climbs up to the top of this sort of silo where he has a very emotional chat with Madeline. Yeah. And it's quite sad before that as well, because Q's trying to figure out ways around it, and he's telling him, basically says to him, look, we can't do anything. And so and Kira's quite upset, Mallory's quite upset by it, and it's kind of it's a very sad scene actually, because he goes to the top of this thing and he's looking where his daughter and Madeline are, and he's talking to Madeline, and he has a few very nice lines where I can't remember what he says, but he says something about her being the most perfect thing ever, something about his daughter being the most perfect thing ever. It was really, really nice. Obviously I'm not doing it justice because you probably aren't crying.
Yeah.
And then these missiles all rain down on him and he dies. Yeah. Cut to the actual ending, which is, it shows you all of the MI6 people in a bar.
We're just in M's office, isn't it? It's
No, it's a bar.
I thought it was just an office.
No, it's a bar.
Oh, well, a bar then.
And they've all got some scotch.
Yeah.
They say for James. And
it should have been like a martini though, do you think?
Well,
that would have been more like...
I thought they were going to... Because they make a joke earlier on where Shaun Lynch's character says, did you think they would retire the number with you?
007 number,
I thought they were going to retire... I thought it was going to be like a thing saying, 007 retired or something, and it was that retiring his number, which they didn't do, by the way. And they all say for James, and Mallory reads a very nice little quote about living life and all that stuff. And then Madeline and Matilda are in the DB5 driving through Italy and she turns to him and says, "I've got to tell you a story about a man. His name was Bond, James Bond."
Yeah.
And then it ends.
It's very cute.
Also, just something I mentioned, when he's having this emotional conversation with Madeline, she says, "I wish we had more time," and he says, "You have all the time in the world," as in you have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And it's very sort of, it's a callback again to the James. I can't remember which James Bond it is. It's "We have all," that song. That's how we do it. Armstrong song. Yeah. So basically,
that's a basic rundown.
That was our best to try and sum it up in about 5 minutes. It was good though. It was really good. My only thing was there wasn't very many hand-to-hand fight scenes.
There was like
one,
two. There was one big one, but then there was like a few little ones, wasn't there? It was like that little scuffle when he's gone up the stairwell, and there's the one where he's fighting Staffin and stuff. Like little ones, but not like.
Yeah, not like to the extent of Casino Royale where they have like
That's
big
all
elaborate fight scenes. Yeah. Which I think it was the best thing about Casino Royale, because it wasn't just like one punch knockouts as it was in the old school Bonds, and it wasn't like ridiculous over gadgetry. It was just simple hand to hand.
It was like cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was one of the things that made me really love Daniel Craig. But I suppose they had to write it in a way that Daniel Craig could come back and do it, so he wasn't like killing himself trying to do this role.
Yeah.
So if it was a Daniel Craig health reason, then I understand. And don't worry, Daniel Craig, you are a national treasure.
I was just saying the scene that made me like what was she called, Lashana Lynch. The reason why I ended up really liking her character at the end is because she actually gave James his number back.
Yeah.
So obviously she's 007, and then she says to Mallory that she wants the number to be reinstated back to James.
Bond.
Because they kind of have this weird kind of like relationship, don't they, where she's kind of like, I guess she feels a little threatened by him, that he's come back, and there's a scene where she's told he's reinstated as a 00, and she asks what number, because obviously I guess she's worried that she's gonna like lose her position.
Yeah.
But it was like a nice touch that she kind of recognises that he's like.
And there was also a scene where they're going through MI6 and everyone's going 007, and they're not looking at her, they're looking at him.
They're kind of like, oh wait,
shock,
who do I say this to?
Yeah, and it's like it was a nice touch, because this was also partly written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is also another English sort of comedic actor, because she's brilliant. And there was less sort of puns. He wasn't there making puns after every kill or like that. It was more about, I think it was more to show his vulnerable side. He was very vulnerable in quite a few of these scenes, especially when he goes back to Madeline's house and he's telling her that he loves her, and it's like you see a much different side to him. But now everyone's saying, how does James Bond continue?
They're just going to reboot it, aren't they? That's the simplest way. They couldn't. That was the issue though, and obviously this was a big part of the reason why our dad was upset. Because
we'd never seen James Bond die on screen before.
Dad's whole argument was that James Bond is, you see him from his like early
30s to late 50s, to early 50s.
To early 50s, and then that's it, and then it restarts. You don't. That's kind of like the time frame, and that's it. You never see him die.
He was also saying all these actors who were playing supporting characters now can't come back because Bond's dead. So the likes of M and Moneypenny and Q, they can't come back because
Daniel Craig's
dead.
Died. But it's not necessarily true. They could bring back one or two characters, I guess, but they probably are just going to reboot it, aren't they, and go down a different story route. 5
or 6 years time, they'll do another one.
Well, I reckon within like the next year, they'll probably announce who the next James Bond is.
Richard Mann.
And they'll probably announce who the next James Bond is, and then they'll start like pre-production and stuff. They're going to make more. There's no way they would stop making.
There's too much money in James Bond's name, isn't there? But yeah, every character was good.
But he did have to die though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He did. When the old James Bond movies were made, they could get away with it.
Yeah.
But I think now
it's less believable. People are less accepting.
But also, like, Daniel Craig would have just been hassled to the end of time, asking him to come back. There's no way. Like, they had to close the story off, otherwise he would have been able to leave it.
Yeah. My thing was at the beginning they were either going to kill off Madeline because in the books and in one of the films he does get married and then she dies. She gets killed by a spectre. So it was either she was going to die and he was going to fully retire and live out with his daughter.
Yeah.
Or he was going to die and that would be the end. I couldn't see any eventuality where he or she were both alive together, because it still would have meant that he could at some point go back to MI6. But you know, it was a good ending and it was a good death. It wasn't just sort of like he got shot, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he did get shot, but he didn't die.
It was like he went through like a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And he kind of accepted it, didn't he? It was like on his terms.
Yeah. So as far as Daniel Craig rankings, film rankings go, where would you put this one? You tell us your film ranking. He's done 5.
It's remembering all the 5.
Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre.
So I'd put Skyfall. I really like Skyfall.
Yeah.
Casino Royale. Probably Quantum of Solace. This one. And Spectre. Mainly just because I was a bit confused by Spectre. Yeah. That's not saying it was a bad movie.
Spectre's not the best one.
It was kind of. It confused us. It took us a while to understand what was happening. Maybe it's just because I'm not a big James Bond fan, so I didn't get all the references and stuff. But I did struggle a bit.
My ranking would be Casino Royale and Skyfall together, number 1. I don't think either of them's better than the other one. This one, then Quantum, then Spectre. Because Quantum of Solace was basically a Casino Royale epilogue. It was like the bits that they couldn't fit in.
And that's not saying if any of them are bad though. They were all good movies, but
Daniel Craig's got the most efficient. Is the most efficient Bond. All of Daniel Craig's films are good films, whereas some of the other Bonds don't have very good films. Probably George Lazenby is probably the most efficient James Bond because his film was actually good and he only did one. On Her Majesty's Secret Service is really good and it's really sad, and people sometimes forget how good of a Bond George Lazenby was. Timothy Dalton as well. Timothy Dalton was a good one, but everyone forgets him because he was in 2 poor movies. Roger Moore wasn't bad either. They were all good. I don't know what I'm talking about. They were all good.
They all had distinctive things about them that made them good.
Yeah. The half the problem was some of them just stayed on until they were too old. And
Roger Moore was a bit too old.
So was Pierce Brosnan. Like because if Pierce Brosnan had just done GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough. He did another one. What other one did he do? If he'd done those ones, let's just say those 3.
There's going to be someone in the comments mentioning you for that.
I know. He would have had a really good legacy because all 3 of those films were good. Then he came back and did Die Another Day, which was just pants. It was just the worst. It was just the worst thing ever. Not as bad as Roger Moore's later ones, but it was really, really bad. Yeah. But Daniel Craig's been very efficient. He's a good Bond, and we love you, Daniel Craig. Okay, we love you. But who's the next Bond? Last question. Know. Who should be the next Bond?
I don't know. Do you know I do really like the idea of Richard Madden being James Bond. It just makes sense. And they could also go down the whole James Bond was like the Scottish kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they could go down like a completely different route to what they've done before.
Yeah.
And he's like in the right age bracket.
Yeah.
So you could do quite a few of them.
Yeah. And he can probably do action scenes.
Well, I mean, he has done action scenes for like the Bodyguard and stuff, hasn't he? So.
Looks good in a suit as well.
Yeah.
Rocks a suit. I could imagine him behind a DB5.
Who else? Who else would be?
God. I don't even care about who else. Richard Madden's my number 1
You'll
pick.
Be so heartbroken though.
If he isn't, there will be hell to pay.
He has to be like really good though. He has to be like to go after Daniel Craig. Whoever it is going to have to be like.
Well, like the 3 favourites at the minute are Idris Elba, Richard Madden, and Tom Hardy, aren't they?
Tom Hardy.
Yeah, because you can see the appeal in Tom Hardy is it's a different version of all the other ones where he's not going to be a posh boy, he's going to be like the
rugged kind of like sort of get down and dirty kind of. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, he does have to be different, I guess. I just couldn't really picture him. Everyone, all the people everyone ever talked about was like your Tom Hiddlestons and Richard Madden's. That just I never really thought about what Tom Hardy would look like.
Couldn't have a beard. James Bond can't have a beard. Clean shaven. But let us know what you thought down in the comments. What's your rank, and who do you think should be the next James Bond? Who did you think was the best character, and what would you give it out of 10? And like the video, subscribe, ding the bell to be notified when we upload. We upload every day. Anything else you want to say?
What would you give it out of 10? We didn't even do that.
Oh, it was 7.
7. About you. I'm going to agree. I'm going to concur with that decision.
Was that the last thing you wanted to say?
Yeah. I can't do a James Bond reference. It's me. I can barely even do a Marvel reference on like James Bond. It's like
I never did a James Bond reference. Let me just think of one.
You need like to be wearing a suit so you can like do that cool thing that he fixes
his cufflinks.
Right, like he gets out of the car and he goes.
Just a quick side story just before the end of the video. When the trailer for Skyfall came out, right, and there was that little bit where he drops from the train and he fixes his cufflinks, I knew that film was going to be made.
Oh, that was a good.
That's such a Bond move. Is to just doesn't even matter if he's been shot. He's just like make sure the cufflinks are okay.
Yep, fix the suit, cufflinks, everything's all right in the world.
We've had a few of them. James Bond does that a few times. Pierce Brosnan was the best at doing that though, because there's one where he flies through this wall. And he's in a tank, right? So he just pops out and he just goes. He just fixes his tie. But then in The World Is Not Enough, he does it again because he's in like a little submarine ship thing. But it's like it goes underwater, but it hasn't got like a windshield or anything, so he gets like soaked. So he goes under the water, and you see him under the water when he's in this thing, and he just kind of goes, he's holding his breath, just fixes his tie while he's underwater. Anyway,
why not?
Thank you for watching.
I need to know.